Anniversaries used to mean something in our house. Every October 17th, without fail, I would wake up early, slip out of bed before Emma stirred, and make her breakfast. French toast, always. Lightly browned, dusted with powdered sugar, and served with fresh berries and coffee in the floral porcelain cup she loved. Then I'd place the tray on her nightstand and watch her eyes open to the smell of cinnamon and syrup. She'd smile. That soft, sleepy smile that made me feel like I was the luckiest man in the world. This year was different. The morning passed with no shared breakfast. No exchanged gifts. Not even a note. I waited, hoping she'd bring it up before she left for work, but she didn't. Just a rushed goodbye. "Have a good day, babe," and the slam of the front door. I stood in the kitchen, coffee growing cold in my hand, unsure whether I was hurt or just confused. We'd been married 9 years. Long enough to have weathered layoffs, a miscarriage, 2 cross-country moves, and that rough patch in 2019 when we nearly split. But we held on. I thought we were stronger now, settled, solid. That's what I told myself as the hours ticked by and the silence of the house pressed in on me. Emma was an editor for a lifestyle magazine downtown. Her job kept her busy, especially during quarterly issue crunches. So when she texted that afternoon, "Working late tonight. Sorry, I'll make it up to you this weekend," I swallowed my disappointment and replied with a thumbs-up emoji and a "no worries. Be safe." But there were worries. There always are, when routines begin to break and familiar patterns feel just a little off. I microwaved leftovers, watched an episode of something I didn't really care about, and checked my phone more times than I care to admit. By 10:15 p.m., I finally heard her keys rattle in the lock. She came in quiet, hair damp like she'd showered elsewhere, and offered a weary smile. "Long day," she said, dropping her bag by the door. I nodded, pretending to be half asleep on the couch. "You eat. Grabbed something earlier with a coworker. I'm wiped." Then she kissed my forehead and headed upstairs. I sat in the dim light of the TV, trying to quiet the unease rising in my chest. The next morning, after she left for work again, I couldn't shake the sense that something wasn't right. It wasn't just the forgotten anniversary. It was the faint scent I caught when she leaned in to kiss me. Not her usual lavender body wash. Something muskier. And her earrings. They weren't the ones she left the house wearing the day before. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I'd watched too many crime dramas or read too many tabloid stories. But the mind is a strange thing. Once it senses a crack, it can't help but dig. That afternoon, I went out to run errands. One of them, mundane as it sounds, was to get gas. Emma had taken my car earlier in the week while hers was in the shop, and when I got in, I noticed a crumpled parking receipt in the center console. Habit made me unfold it. It was from Le Jardin, a high-end restaurant on 4th Avenue. Dated last night, October 17th. The timestamp was 7:42 p.m. I blinked. Le Jardin was where we had our second anniversary dinner. The place was expensive, reservation only, known for its quiet ambience and candlelit tables. A far cry from where you'd go for a quick bite with coworkers. Curious now, I checked the back seat. Her cardigan was tossed there, and next to it, a small paper bag. Tissue poking out the top. Inside, a little white pastry box tied with silver ribbon. I opened it. 2 half-eaten creme brulees. Not 1. 2. I didn't know what hit harder, the receipt, the desserts, or the fact that she hadn't brought any of this home. "No, I brought you something sweet." No mention of the restaurant, nothing. Back home, I placed the box on the counter and sat on the stool, staring at it like it might suddenly tell me the truth. 1,000 thoughts darted through my head, each one louder than the last. Who was she with? Why lie? Maybe I was jumping to conclusions. Maybe it really was a coworker. Maybe it was a celebratory dinner. Maybe. No. You don't go to Le Jardin with a coworker on your anniversary and not say a word. And you don't throw away the receipt unless you don't want someone to see it. That evening, I didn't say a word. Neither did she. She moved around the house as though everything was normal, asking about groceries and whether I'd remembered to call the plumber. I answered with the same level of detachment, tucking away my suspicions like a magician's secret trick. The next day, while she was in the shower, I checked her bag. I know how that sounds. I'd never done it before. I hated that I was doing it now. But when someone builds their life around you, promises you honesty and loyalty, and then starts acting like a stranger, you have to know why. Her phone wasn't there. She'd taken it with her into the bathroom, as usual. But her wallet was. I opened it. Inside, another receipt. This one for a boutique flower shop, Jardins and Fleurs, dated the same night. One bouquet, $75. No delivery. Picked up in person. I swallowed. The house didn't have any new flowers. None in the trash either. I checked. So she bought them. But not for here. Not for me. It felt like a crack down the center of my rib cage. A slow split, letting the cold in. That night, I drove downtown. I parked across from the restaurant, sat in my car for over an hour watching strangers go in and out under golden lights. I wasn't sure what I hoped to see. Maybe her walking in again, hand in hand with some faceless man. Maybe a sign. Instead, I just sat, breathing in the stale scent of my own car, fists clenched on the steering wheel. The next morning, I called Le Jardin. Hi. I'm trying to confirm a reservation that might have been made under the name Emma Whitmore, I said, affecting a polite tone. It would have been for Tuesday night. A pause. Yes, let me check, the hostess said. Yes, Emma Whitmore. Party of two. Seated at 7:45. And the name of the person she was with? I asked before I could stop myself. I'm sorry, we don't release guest information, she replied, the line going formal. Of course. I thanked her and hung up. I sat there at the dining table, staring at nothing, while the kids' art projects cluttered the counter and the dishwasher hummed in the background. My heart felt strangely still, like the silence before a storm. She had lied. On our anniversary. Not just forgotten it, replaced it. And now, I needed to know who he was. Because if there was one thing I understood clearly, it was that this wasn't going to end with me sitting quietly in the shadows. Not anymore. I've always believed that the truth, no matter how painful, is better than uncertainty. When you're in the dark, your mind starts filling in the gaps. And mine, sharpened by a decade of structural engineering, was very good at building scenarios from the barest foundation. By Sunday night, I was no longer wondering if Emma had cheated. I was wondering who it was with, how long it had gone on, and whether she was planning to leave. The idea of her leaving should have felt like the worst part. But it wasn't. What gutted me most was the calm in her lies. The ease with which she returned home, walked barefoot through the hallway we painted together, slipped into our bed like nothing had changed. It was that ease that haunted me. I started making lists. Emma's coworkers. The names she mentioned most: Melissa, her assistant; Jonah, the lead photographer; Theo, the graphic designer who once drove her home in a snowstorm. I scoured their social media pages, but nothing jumped out. Too curated. Too clean. Too impersonal. Then I remembered the flower receipt. Jardins and Fleurs. I called them Monday during my lunch break. Yes, I'm trying to confirm a recent order. I believe my wife picked up a bouquet last Tuesday, I said. Emma Whitmore. A beat of typing on the other end. Yes, I see it here, the woman said. Pink garden roses, ranunculus, and peonies. Classic romantic arrangement. For delivery or pickup? Pickup, sir. I exhaled slowly. Any message included? Let me check, yes. The card read, to another year of magic. Yours always. My throat dried. I asked, was the note handwritten? No, sir. Typed on our standard stationery. I muttered a thank you and hung up. Another year of magic. That wasn't a first date. That was a relationship. Ongoing. Steady. I tried to recall the last time Emma had called us magic. Probably not since before our second child was born. That evening, I made a decision. I didn't want to confront her with vague accusations. I didn't want a fight riddled with denials and gaslighting. I wanted undeniable proof. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I installed a camera. Tiny. No larger than a shirt button. Hidden in the hollow between two books on the bedroom shelf. It faced the dresser, Emma's landing spot. Her mirror, her hair ties, the velvet-lined tray where she dropped her earrings at night. Then I placed another in the living room, above the mantel, angled to capture the front door. I told myself I needed answers. But really, I needed clarity. I needed to know what kind of story I was in. Was I the fool at the center of it? Or the storm waiting to be unleashed? Tuesday, I played it cool. Emma was affectionate. She leaned her head on my shoulder during dinner, laughed at something I said about a neighbor's Halloween decorations, and kissed me before bed. But I noticed how often she checked her phone that night. How her eyes lit up. Not for me, but for a screen she angled slightly away. At 2 a.m., I got out of bed and retrieved the camera's SD card. I reviewed the footage from that evening on my laptop in the garage. Door closed, engine off, silence so thick it buzzed. There wasn't much in the living room. Just the front door opening at 6:03 p.m. and closing behind her. But the bedroom camera, that was different. Emma stood at her dresser, wearing the navy blouse she wore that morning. Her hand moved to the tray, but instead of dropping her earrings, she pulled something out. A second phone. It was slim, black, unfamiliar. She turned slightly, enough for the camera to catch the screen as she typed. She smiled, tapped a heart emoji, then tucked the phone into the hem of a sock and placed it at the back of the drawer. Sleight of hand. Casual, practiced. I sat there staring at the frozen image on my screen, rage boiling in the pit of my stomach. This wasn't a fling. It wasn't some drunken mistake. This was organized, strategic, hidden. The next morning, I waited for her to leave before heading back upstairs. I opened her sock drawer and pulled out the rolled pair near the back. The second phone was still there. No password. Just a swipe up. The messages were sparse, cleared out, probably, but not completely. Him, Thursday, same place. Her, of course. Couldn't stop thinking about it. Him, you're mine. Her, always. The contact name was just an emoji, 2 stars, and a flame. No number. No name. I took pictures of everything, heart hammering so hard I thought I'd faint. Then I put it back exactly where I found it. I wasn't ready to confront her yet. Not until I had a name. That night, after Emma fell asleep, I used her thumb to unlock her main phone and downloaded a tracking app. I knew her passcodes. She hadn't changed them since 2018. It took less than 5 minutes. The app wouldn't show me her texts, but it would tell me where she went. I set up alerts for 2 locations, our house and Le Jardin. If she went back, I'd know. The next few days, I acted normal. Forced myself to laugh when she made dumb jokes. Kissed her forehead each morning. Picked up the kids from school. Cooked. Cleaned. Smiled. And then Thursday came. She wore her gray coat, the one she saves for special nights out. She kissed me twice at the door. Working late, she said. Big redesign meeting. I nodded. Don't stay too late. I won't. Love you. I love you too. And then she was gone. At 7:12 p.m., my phone pinged. She was at Le Jardin. Not the office. Not with coworkers. At the same restaurant. Again, I felt something crack inside me. A soundless rupture, like thin ice giving way beneath too much weight. By 8:40, she was on the move again. Her next stop wasn't home. It was the Elysian Hotel, 5 blocks from the restaurant. A boutique place. Low-key. Private. The app showed her staying put. I sat on the couch, staring at the blinking icon on my phone. Watching her linger at that hotel, knowing I wasn't the one she was lingering with. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened my laptop, logged into our joint account, and scoured recent charges. Nothing from Le Jardin. Nothing from Elysian. She wasn't paying for any of it. Then I checked her credit card. She'd made a cash withdrawal the day before. $300. She was paying in bills. No paper trail. I closed my laptop and stood up. Every nerve in my body buzzed with resolve. If she was willing to erase our anniversary with candlelight dinners and secret hotel rooms, then I'd return the favor with something unforgettable of my own. I just needed one more piece of the puzzle. One more truth to turn this betrayal into something she'd never forget. The next morning, I followed her. She didn't see me, but I saw him, and I knew who he was. And that's when everything changed. It's strange how a face you've seen 100 times can suddenly become unrecognizable. When I saw him step out of the cafe and lean casually against Emma's car, my car, technically, it was like watching a stranger wear someone else's skin. His name was Caleb. He worked at her office. I'd met him once, briefly, at the magazine's Christmas party 2 years ago. He brought a bottle of red wine and told an off-color joke about editors, earning polite laughter and sideways glances. Back then, I dismissed him as forgettable. Now, I couldn't forget his face if I tried. He wore a camel-colored coat, clean-shaven, his hair swept back like he stepped off the cover of a budget cologne ad. He smiled as Emma approached, reached for her hand, and they both laughed at something I couldn't hear. She touched his shoulder as she leaned in, and he brushed a thumb across her cheek like it was the most natural thing in the world. I took the photo through my windshield. Then another. Then one more, just in case. After they drove off, I sat there for several long minutes, breath held, jaw clenched, fingers wrapped tight around the steering wheel. I wasn't sure what shook me more, the sight of her with him or how happy she looked. She never looked at me like that anymore. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the garage again, sifting through the growing collection of surveillance footage, text screenshots, and now photos. I arranged them into folders on a USB drive. I labeled them plainly. Emma, Le Jardin, Elysian Hotel, Caleb, texts. I didn't know what I was building toward: divorce, confrontation, exposure, but I knew I was building something. By Friday afternoon, I'd made up my mind. I called in sick from work and drove to her office. Not to confront her, but to observe, watch her in her element. She was in meetings most of the day, according to her assistant, whom I pretended to mistake for someone else in the lobby. A casual slip, a smile. No questions asked. At noon, I watched Caleb step outside to take a call. I followed him at a distance when he walked across the street to grab coffee. He didn't notice me. I was invisible, just another face in the crowd. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, I told Emma I'd be heading to my friend Noah's lake house the next day. Guys' weekend, I said. Needed a little reset. She barely looked up from her book. Sounds good, she murmured. You deserve it. No suspicion, no curiosity, not even a blink. The next morning, I packed a bag, loaded it into the trunk, and drove in the opposite direction of Noah's. Instead, I parked downtown and checked into the Elysian. Room 308. Same floor she'd visited. I spent the afternoon reviewing the footage again. At one point, I found myself fixating on the way Emma smiled when she texted him. The way her lips curled, slow and knowing. That was the smile she used to save for me. Back when love meant something unspoken, something sacred. Before it became disposable. I couldn't remember the last time she laughed that freely in my presence. Around 5 p.m., I changed into black slacks and a collared shirt. Neutral, nondescript. I needed to blend in. I left the hotel, walked a few blocks, and positioned myself near the restaurant's back entrance. Le Jardin had valet service out front, but discreet staff exits near the alley behind. At 6:40 p.m., she arrived, wearing a wine-red dress I hadn't seen in months. One I thought she'd donated. Her heels clicked against the pavement as she walked toward the front entrance. Caleb followed a few steps behind, jacket slung over one shoulder. He looked relaxed, confident. I stayed hidden. They dined for 2 hours. I didn't follow them inside. I didn't need to. The camera in the hotel room would do the work. Yes, the hotel room. Earlier that day, I checked into room 412, the room next to hers. I requested it after slipping the concierge a tip and muttering something about anniversaries, surprise setups. Don't want her to see me before dinner. They smiled, oblivious. What they didn't know was that I'd checked the registry earlier using a fake name and discovered Caleb booked room 414. My hands trembled when I saw it. I couldn't believe how predictable they were. I planted a miniature microphone in the air vent of the room while the housekeeping cart blocked the hallway view. Wireless. Audio only, but it would be enough. Then I returned to 412 and waited. At 9:04 p.m., the hallway camera caught them arriving. She touched his hand as he unlocked the door. He pulled her in. The door closed. The audio began. I didn't listen at first. I couldn't. I let it run in the background while I paced the carpeted floor, each step absorbing 1,000 versions of heartbreak. But eventually, curiosity overcame nausea. His voice, low and eager. Hers, warm and breathless. He told her she smelled incredible. She laughed, said something about hiding the scent before she went home. He made a joke about cologne on her collar. Then silence, broken only by whispers and movement. No need to guess. I turned off the speaker. It was done. I had everything. Proof of the affair. Proof of the lies. Proof of a love that had slowly rotted from the inside out. But I wasn't going to confront her tonight. That would be too easy. Too impulsive. I wanted something better. Something memorable. So I waited. Sunday morning, I returned home before dawn. She was asleep in bed, hair fanned across the pillow like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't watched her commit herself to another man in real time. I slipped in beside her, my body stiff, heart like stone. When she stirred, she smiled faintly and mumbled, "Missed you." I almost laughed. The next few days, I moved carefully, like a man preparing for war. I compiled every photo, every video, every bit of evidence into a presentation. Literally, a PowerPoint file. Clean, simple, chronological. Each slide titled with a date, each one ending with a single damning image. Then I sent out the invitations. A small dinner party. Just 8 people. A mix of friends, co-workers, Emma's boss, And, yes, Caleb, I created a reason. Emma's big promotion. A fabricated title change at her magazine. She believed it. Smiled when I told her. Even hugged me. Thank you for supporting me, she whispered. I kissed her forehead. Always. And now, it was Friday again. The guests arrived on time. Wine flowed. Music played low. Emma glowed in a navy blouse and earrings I gave her 2 anniversaries ago. Caleb arrived last, fashionably late, holding a bottle of Merlot and wearing the same smug grin he had when I first spotted him outside the cafe. We made small talk. We toasted to Emma's success. Laughter bounced around the dining room like sunlight. Then I stood. I want to say a few words, I began. Emma smiled at me, her hand resting gently on mine. And I returned the smile. I made a little presentation, I said, gesturing to the TV. Oh no. Emma laughed, covering her mouth. You didn't. I did, I replied. It's a timeline. Of what? Our anniversary week. And then I hit play. The screen lit up. Slide 1. October 17th, Lou Jardin receipt. Slide 2. October 17th, Elysian check-in. Slide 3. October 18th, hidden phone. Slide 4. October 19th, surveillance photo, Emma and Caleb. Slide 5. October 20th, hotel audio, transcribed. Silence fell. Caleb dropped his wine glass. Emma stared at the screen, face pale, mouth open. One of her co-workers gasped. I turned back to them. This, I said quietly, is what it looks like when you trade love for secrecy. Then I picked up my bag, walked to the door, and turned the knob. But just before I stepped out, Caleb stood up. Wait, he said. And that's when everything really exploded. Wait, Caleb said, standing abruptly. His voice cracked under the weight of the silence. The clatter of his dropped wine glass echoed like a gunshot. Red liquid bled across the rug beneath him, seeping into the threads like a slow wound. But I didn't stop walking. Not until he reached for my arm. Let go, I said, cold and quiet. He froze, hands suspended midair. Emma hadn't moved. She stood at the edge of the dining table like a statue, mouth parted, face drained, eyes locked on the television screen where a photo of her tucked into Caleb's arms still lingered. I could hear her breathing. Shallow, uneven, fragile. A guest coughed. Another muttered, "What the hell is this?" I turned back to them, friends and colleagues caught in the crossfire of betrayal. The tension wasn't cinematic. It was sickening, real, unrehearsed. I hadn't planned it for applause. I had planned it for the truth. Emma blinked, finally breaking her trance. Please, she whispered. Let me explain. I laughed, not cruelly but bitterly. Explain what? Her lips parted, then closed again. She had nothing. One of her co-workers, Maya, I think, stood and touched her shoulder. Emma, I'm so sorry. That phrase, so sorry. It rang empty in the room, full of people who now knew what I had lived with in silence. The secrecy, the gaslighting, the ease with which she had come home and curled beside me in bed after being with him. Caleb rubbed his hands together like he could scrub off the guilt. It wasn't meant to go this far. I stared at him. Do you hear yourself? I asked. You sound like a cliché. He flinched. A few more guests excused themselves quietly. I didn't stop them. I didn't care. Emma stepped forward, eyes glassy. Please. Not here. Let's talk. Just us. I shook my head. You've had plenty of chances to talk. You just chose not to. I didn't want to hurt you, she said, voice shaking. You just didn't want to lose the comfort of being loved by two people at once, I replied. You wanted the illusion of marriage and the thrill of infidelity. And now you have neither. She covered her mouth, like she could push the truth back inside. I walked out the door, finally, with the last word hanging behind me like smoke. Outside, the night was calm. My car sat at the curb, its windshield reflecting the porch light like a silent sentinel. I climbed in and sat still for a while, hands on the wheel, trying to remember what normal used to feel like. By the time I drove off, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt emptied, hollowed out by months of doubt, the weeks of secret digging, the hours spent watching the woman I loved with someone else. Revenge, it turns out, is not sweet. It is necessary, but bitter. I checked into a rental apartment downtown that night. Sparse, small, but clean. The silence of it was different from the silence in our home. This one didn't feel deceptive. The next morning, my lawyer called. I reviewed the file, she said. What you've compiled is damning. If you want to move forward with divorce proceedings, you'll have a strong case. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Move forward. You sure? Yes. It was harder than I expected to say, even after everything. Because when you've built a life with someone, even the worst parts still echo with memories of the best. Emma called that afternoon. I let it go to voicemail. Then she texted, "Please, just coffee, just to talk. 1 hour." I stared at the message for several minutes before replying. Tomorrow, noon, the bench at Union Park. She was there before me, seated stiffly on the wooden bench beneath the rustling canopy of sycamores. Her hair was pulled back, her eyes shadowed with sleeplessness. She looked smaller than I remembered. I didn't sit. I stood, arms crossed, watching her shift uncomfortably. "I'm not here to win you back," she said. "I know I don't deserve that." I stayed silent. I need you to understand. It didn't start as an affair. Caleb and I worked late together, often. We got close. We talked about things I hadn't talked about in years. Creative things, hopes, frustrations. Things you and I, she trailed off. "You mean things you never tried to talk to me about?" I corrected. She nodded, accepting it. "I should have," she said. "I should have chosen honesty. But I didn't. And I hate myself for that." A breeze rustled the leaves above. A couple walked by with a golden retriever, laughter trailing behind them. The world didn't care about the ruins of my marriage. "I kept waiting for you to notice," she added quietly. "I thought maybe you'd find out, and we'd have it out, and I'd finally be forced to decide. But you never said anything. You just kept being kind." I exhaled. I wasn't being kind. I was hoping it wasn't true. She blinked, tears welling. "I never stopped loving you." "That's not love," I said. "What you did, what you chose, over and over, is not love." She covered her face. I didn't reach out. After a long silence, she said, "I'm ending things with Caleb. He meant something for a while, but it was built on lies." I nodded. "Then you deserve each other." Her head dropped. "I'll give you space to get your things from the house. You can stay until the paperwork is done. But after that, we're done too." She stood slowly, shoulders shaking. "I'm sorry," she whispered again. I didn't say anything as she walked away, fading down the sidewalk like a ghost slipping into daylight. The next week, the divorce papers were filed. It made headlines in small circles. Emma was respected in her field, and Caleb's quiet resignation from the magazine stirred curiosity. Friends reached out, confused, sympathetic. I responded to none. But the story wasn't over. Not for me. Because one morning, 2 weeks later, I received a small package on my doorstep. No return address. Inside, a USB drive and a note written in block letters. "You missed something. Thought you should know." My breath caught. The drive contained several files. Hidden camera footage. Caleb, not with Emma. He was with someone else. Someone I knew. Someone very, very close to both of us. A second betrayal. A deeper one. One I never saw coming. And just like that, I realized. This wasn't over. The USB drive was still warm from the sun when I slid it into my laptop. At first, I didn't know what I was looking at. The video was grainy, black and white, from an overhead security camera. The kind you see in parking garages or hotel lobbies. A timestamp blinked in the corner. 2 weeks before our anniversary. Caleb entered the frame, alone at first. Then someone else appeared. A woman. Petite, familiar. My stomach dropped. It was Melissa, Emma's assistant. The one who once smiled at me across brunch tables. The one who had attended our wedding. The one who, for the last year, Emma had referred to as her work wife. They were kissing. Not timidly. Not uncertainly. Kissing like people who knew each other's bodies. I clicked to the next file. Hotel hallway footage. Caleb unlocking a door. Melissa slipping in behind him. The third clip was audio. It played like a punch to the ribs. "Emma has no idea," Melissa said, breathless. "She doesn't need to. She's in her own world," Caleb replied. "She still thinks you're in love with her." A pause. Then laughter. "I don't even like her," he said. I closed the laptop. It was worse than I imagined. The affair Emma had staked her marriage on wasn't even real. Caleb had used her, played her, and the woman who helped him do it was someone she trusted like a sister. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt a deeper, colder kind of grief. That night, I walked through our old house for the last time. The movers were scheduled for the morning. My new place, a modest apartment on the edge of the city, was ready. I'd signed the divorce papers last Thursday. Emma hadn't contested anything. She didn't have the energy to fight. I found her sitting on the back porch when I went to drop off her final documents. She looked thinner, not just physically, but in spirit, like someone had taken scissors to the edges of her confidence and cut away everything that once made her solid. She didn't look up right away. "I know," she said, barely audible. I stood there. "About Caleb and Melissa?" I asked. She nodded. "He broke it off with me the day after the dinner. Said it was over. Said I was too messy now." That's how he phrased it. I sat down in the patio chair across from her. "And Melissa? She's not at the magazine anymore," she said. "HR got an anonymous tip about misuse of company funds. She resigned before they could investigate." I stared at the grass. "You loved him," I said flatly. She flinched. "I thought I did. But now I realize I was clinging to anything that made me feel alive. And I thought he saw me, understood me." I didn't respond. She looked up. "I betrayed you. I know there's no undoing that. But I wanted you to know I see everything clearly now." I nodded. "It's too late, Emma. I know. I don't hate you," I said. She looked at me like I'd just handed her a life raft. "But I also don't love you anymore. Not in the way you want." She swallowed hard and looked away. "I deserve that." We sat there in silence. The kind that's no longer uncomfortable, just final. "I'm going to leave the city," she said after a while. "Maybe Portland. Maybe further." I nodded. "I hope you find peace." She smiled faintly. "I hope you find something better than what I gave you." I left without another word. 2 months passed. Fall gave way to the brittle chill of winter. I settled into the new apartment, got used to the quiet, learned to sleep without waiting for a second voice in the dark. The silence no longer hurt. One afternoon, I found myself at the art supply store across town. Painting had always been a background hobby, something I did in college before work and bills became louder than creativity. But now it felt like something worth returning to. I stood in the brush aisle when a voice behind me said, "Hog bristles good for acrylics, but terrible with watercolors." I turned. Michelle, my old assistant. She wore her hair shorter now, and her posture seemed lighter, more open. "I didn't expect to see you here," I said, surprised. She shrugged, smiling. "New year. Trying new things." We walked around the store together for 20 minutes. Talked about work, life, regrets. She'd left the firm a month after I did, started freelancing for a few boutique agencies. Said she loved the freedom. Said she was tired of waiting for the wrong people to become right. Before we parted, she said, "You look different." "How so?" "Less tense. Like someone who finally let go of something heavy." I smiled. "Maybe I did." She gave me her number. "Just in case you ever want to paint with someone who still colors outside the lines." I held the card in my hand for a long time after she left. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. But it felt like the start of something honest. 3 months later, the divorce finalized. Clean. Quiet. Emma moved west, just as she said she would. She emailed once, just a few lines. "Wish me well." No apology. No defense. Just a period at the end of our sentence. And I realized, standing in my new kitchen, pouring coffee into a chipped mug, that I wasn't broken anymore. Wounded, yes, but stronger where the fractures healed. They say anniversaries are for remembering. I used to think that meant candlelight dinners, clinking glasses, and shared desserts. Now I know better. Now, I remember to value truth over comfort, to choose self-respect over blind forgiveness, to never again let someone build a secret life beside mine. And maybe next October 17th, I'll raise a glass, not in mourning of what was lost, but in quiet celebration of what I refused to tolerate, of what I walked away from, and of the man I reclaimed in the ashes.